Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's always an honour to speak in front of this prestigious range of philatelists, and thank you very much. You know that a lot of what I collect is Nicaraguan, and I always like to give a talk about it. And this talk will be on the airmail stamps. I've said for the first 10 years, but in fact, it'll just be the first 6 years. And I'm going to concentrate on one particular stamp. Anyway, for those who don't know me too well, my name's Glenn Stafford. A couple of things that I've done. I'm the current chair of the FIP Philatelic Commission. I started exhibiting around 2000 years ago, and some of the collections that I exhibit internationally, Nicaraguan postal stationery, airmail, traditional. I've got Siam or Thailand postal stationery. I do some postal history with West Australian World War II, and I do Bolivian revenues. I am an international FIP and FIAP judge. I have been an Australian judge for quite some time. I'm on the board of the FIAP. In Australia, I'm the international officer and past president. I'm a fellow of the Royal of London and a member of the Royal of Victoria. I've been collecting since I was 17, and I actually sell medical x-ray equipment, and I've been involved with that business for over 43 years. For those who don't know, I live in Australia, and this is sort of a fairly large map of Australia. And you'll see on the west coast, there's a city called Perth, which is capital of Western Australia. And a bit further down, you see Fremantle, and a little red patch is Mandurah. So that's about an hour south driving along the freeway. And that's where I live. And also invited a guest, Diane Saunders. She's also from Mandurah. One of the big things about Mandurah is it has the actual largest inland lake in Western Australia. It's called the Peel Inlet. Great for blue swimmer crabs. And for those who like rock lobsters, anywhere up and down the coast, plentiful if you go diving. So this is just a picture of our city. So looking down towards the Great Lake, the Peel Inlet. On the left-hand side is actually downtown, and you can see we have a whole series of canals. We actually have more canals in Mandurah than we do in Venice. And just to give you a different view, here is the marina, and you can see right to the top there's a bit of a grassy area here, and right along the beach is where I live. So I'm just a few minutes walk to the beach every morning. So I'm going to talk about Nicaraguan airmail stamp. This is a bit of an outline. I'm going to give an introduction on what stamps were used when Pan American Airline started flying the FAM5 route. And then the first official printed airmail stamp was the Momotombo issue. And I'm going to go through a bit of a history on how it went through the various rate changes, how it handled new issues as the airmail expanded, how the rates changed. There was a great earthquake which stopped the supply of stamps for a while. There was a great theft when a lot of stamps were stolen, and pretty much how this stamp has been managed over those next 6 years. So the FAM5 route started in 1929, flew out of Miami, and as you can see, it flows down the Central Americas and into South America. So this is where our story starts. So these are essays. There was a subconsular in New York. I think he was brother or cousin of the then president, and he had official stamps in the office. He overprinted them Corriere Aereo, 1929 PAA, as an example of what we could do in the interim until we printed their own stamps. These weren't used, but they were just unadopted essays. So 7th of May 1929, presidential decree says that stamps will be overprinted for use of the new service, which starts 15th of May. They'll use the Palace and Cathedral issue, which was the issue of the day, and they will just overprint 25,000. They thought that would be enough stamps for the interim until they could print the new series. These were in sheets 10 by 10. And because they were overprinted locally in Nicaragua, quite a few overprint errors exist. So here's an example of, as you can see, the quality of overprint wasn't too good. You can see they were overprinted in 3 lines, Courier Area, 1929 PAA for Pan American Airlines. On the left-hand side, on the left 2 stamps, you can see the first O in Corio has a dot above it. And you can see that these overprints actually go fairly across the stamp. On the right-hand side, there was a large 1 in position 13 and 16, which is easily recognisable. And this is just showing usage of that very first overprinted stamp. And you can see a 25 centavo stamp was used to get it up to Miami. From there, it would be trained up to New York and then surface mail out to where it had to go. Currently, the surface mail rate's added on there, and it's only 2 centavos to actually fly a letter was more than 10 times the cost of just sending it up by ship. And of course, if you were in the UPAPE destinations, which was really all the Americas except for Canada, including Spain and the Philippines, then you paid a 1 centavo tax. And this tax was to rebuild the cathedral after the earthquake of 21. So they ran out of those 25,000, so they did another overprint. They reset the type. And as you can see here now, we've got large A's for PAA and in area as well. So you can see that this is a totally different typeset. They tried to correct it. It did fit on the stamps a lot better, and 25,000 of those were produced. And here's showing the stamp heading off to New York. So that would have been flown to Miami, trained up to New York. A lesson for people that clean up covers for their exhibits. I found all these pencil marks on the very first few that I used, and I started rubbing them off. But then someone told me these tick marks were put on by the PAA as they counted the mail going into the plane. So this is actually an accounting mark, so I shouldn't have rubbed them off in the first place. So PAA demanded the 25 centavos pretty much up front every time they use the service. So then there was a third one overprinted, another 25,000 were issued. And in this case, the typeset was done nicely, and no errors have really been seen to date on this overprint. And here's usage to America. And as you can see, the 25 centavo to get it up to Miami, trained up to New York, and then shipped across to Europe. And there was the 10-cent postage and no tax because it wasn't part of the UPAPE system. 9th of August 29, they needed some official airmail, so they just got a typewriter and they typed on 500 stamps. And there is some forgeries of this, and the way you can tell the genuine is the first R in Corio has dropped compared to the second. And if you have a look at on the official mail, you can see this is dropped as well compared to the second R. So that's the way you can tell if it's forged, then those two are lined up perfectly. So this is an official letter going to England. One of the things is we found a lot of times with officials with Nicaraguan, the airmail rate doesn't quite make any sense, and they were covered under the diplomatic immunity if they were short, or if they overpaid it, it was fine. So 15th September, they did the same run of overprints on official stamps. And as you can see, there was 2 sheets that were double overprinted. Obviously, the first first one didn't line up and they had another go at the second. And there is 2 sheets of inverted. So it just shows you that the care in producing typesets in Nicaragua wasn't that good. And this is an official cover to Guatemala. So one of the things the post office did was to confirm that every new airmail route existed. So every time the new one would go, they would send what they call a test or proving cover. So therefore, just an official address to the city, to Pan American Airways. These will come back and confirm that they did actually get to their destination. So therefore, no surface mail stamp was required because this was just airport to airport. They also had 50 centavos overprinted, and there was a lot of errors in these, as you can see, triple overprints, double overprints, inverted overprints. And you sort of get a bit suspicious that maybe a dealer or two had their hand in how these were produced. And this is another proving cover. Again, 50 centavos wasn't required, but it didn't really make any difference. Another one to Guatemala. So they would often send several of these proving or test covers, and they would return back. So this is the very first issue that Nicaragua produced for airmail. We call it the Momotombo issue because it shows Mount Momotombo, which is a volcano in the middle of the lake. You can see there's 2 DH-4s flying near that volcano. And these were out on the 15th of December. So already airmail service had been going for more than 6 months, and now we have the official. So there's 25 centavo, 50 centavo, and 1 Cordoba. The bottom stamps are a set of specimens. 1 sheet of each was overprinted specimen and hole drilled and kept in the American banknote archives. And these came out for sale during the 70s, where American Banknote Company was selling a lot of their archive material. So the photograph was taken by Lieutenant Boyden. He worked for the US Marines. He was an aviator and an aerial photographer. He took a picture of Mount Momotombo. He superimposed these 2 DH-4s on top of the volcano picture that he took, and he did this and made it into a QSL card. So that's a query service locator. It's often radio operators or ham operators, once they hear a transmission, would write in and say that I've heard about you, and they would send their cards out. So this was for the 1 US Marine Squadron, and their call sign was NN. So the photograph was taken and used primarily for this QSL card. However, the American Banknote Company were able to get a copy of the original photograph that he had superimposed the 2 planes on. And I read in a US journal from the 80s that these are the only known US Marine aircrafts to be put on a stamp, because it is actually forbidden for any US Marine equipment to be put onto a stamp. However, this slipped through the cracks. As you can see with the photograph, it's been put on card, the word sized, indicating to the engraver that the size of the stamp, this is the size of the stamp. It has F8797 above. This is the actual, not invoice, order number that is used to produce the stamp. You can see the engraver is marked here on the right-hand side that the top part is sky, that this middle part is lake, sorry, there's land, the center part here is lake, and there's a few other inscriptions and a couple of annotations down the bottom. This card has only just recently come to surface. I had to buy a volcanic thematic exhibit that belonged to Ed Roos. So this had been sitting in storage for the last 30 years, came to auction, had to buy the whole collection just to get this one card. So from that photo, H.O. Osborne made a bromide. As you can see, it's not a sharp cover, but it's a bromide at the size of what the stamp's going to be. The American banknote then made a frame to go around it, and you can see the value 1 and Cordoba here with the planes in the background. Again, it has the order number of F8979. You can see here the same. This has got approved by the Minister of Finance in a letter that was written on the 15th of July 29 and signed on the 6th of August 29. They did 2 more frames, non-colorized, so showing the 25 and the 1 Cordoba and the 50, again being signed by the Minister of Finance, approving this actual to be converted into a die. So here is a couple of die proofs that have come. You can see the die proof number here is 65819. This shows the proper size and is actually the adopted color for the 25 centavos value. Here is the 50 with the die number 65913, but this color wasn't adopted. There was also an orange put in 50 that wasn't adopted either, and they used the orange color for the 1 Cordoba. They were converted into plate proofs. So this is cut out of a sheet of 100 of a plate proof. And on the back of this plate proof's actually got an approved by the engraving department, superintendent's office. As you can see, this was 5th of September, 1929. It actually has a time, I think it's about 11 o'clock. So it's interesting. Always look at the proofs and the dies that you have to see if there's additional information that you find out about these things. So here's use of the 25 centavo. That was now the airmail rate to the US and pretty much everywhere in the beginning. This is showing that Nicaraguan used the 25 cent as the half ounce, and they rounded it down to 14 grams, where most of the Central American companies rounded it up to 15 grams. So it was per 15 grams. However, the surface rate was per 20 gram, and it can be a little bit confusing when you're calculating what the surface and the airmail rate should be. And don't forget the 1 cent tax. So that 1 cent tax was for the reconstruction of the cathedral after the earthquake. Here's another use of the 25 centavo airmail stamp to Venezuela, and you can see early usage. And here is the use of the 15 centavo going to Paris, showing double rate. And you'll notice that any etiquette once got to New York got cancelled. Jacques markings was what we call them. So it's saying it's airmail to the US, then ship onto Paris. So 15th of May, 1930, so almost a year later from the beginning of the routes, there was a rate change from PAA. Now it went down from 25 centavo to 15 centavo for North America and Cuba, and 20 centavos for Costa Rica, Panama, and canal zones. So you can see in 1930, 1931, the FAM5 route increased, and also they brought out the FAM6 route, which means now there is ways of flying from the Nicaragua to the West Indies to South America and up to north. So the first thing they did was they overprinted the 25 centavos for the new rates for the 15th of May. And so they did 15 centavo in red, and to distinguish 20 centavos in black. So here's showing a 15 centavo going to Belgium. Again, This is flown straight up to Miami, trained up to New York. Jacques markings were applied in New York, and then this was shipped over to Europe. Here's showing the rate of 30 centavos to go to Jamaica. And here's 20 centavos, which was the new rate to Montreal. And now you start to see that Airmail was coming from Messiah to Canada. This still got trucked down to Managua. There was no flights out of Messiah at that stage. Flown to Miami and then trained up to New York and on to Canada from there. So 31st of March 1931, there was a huge earthquake. It destroyed the Managua post office, which means all the stamps in the post office were destroyed. So the PAA flew in regularly into Managua and stayed overnight. So in this stage, it flew off on the 2nd and there was no stamps to be put on mail. So a cachet was produced in a hurry. So you can see at the post office, this was put on showing the 2nd of April, 1931 as an emergency flight. And then, of course, these two cachets indicating that payment of the 15 or 20 centavo rate was made. So for quite a few weeks, there was no airmail stamps, so they had to use what stamps that they could find, and often they were using the palace and cathedral stamps. So you can see 15 centavo paying the airmail rate, 2 centavo the surface rate, and because there was a lack of stamps, they actually bisected the two to make the 1 cent tax. And again, showing to Guatemala 30 centavo in airmail. So they were able to pull all the airmail stamps they could from surrounding post offices. They brought it into Managua, and then they overprinted them 1931 15 centavos. So there's 15 centavos on the 20 that was on the 25, 15 centavos on just 25. There's 15 centavos on 50 and 15 on 1 cordobla. And as you can see, there wasn't a lot of copies around, 368 of the 1 cordobla, 1,400. And you'll see that these were done in type. So if I just go back, yeah, type. And this is showing use of those overprints. Now you can see here there was an error in the type setting. So the 3 and the 9 was reverted, so showing the 1391. It was in position 38 and only 14 sheets were available. So only 14 of those stamps are known. A new supply of stamps to match the 15 centavo and 20 centavo rate was available on the 8th of July. Of course, new colours, so sepia and green. Again, a sheet of specimen stamps were produced for the American Banknote Archives. They had a hole punch and had the word specimen on. And this is showing the new 15 centavo stamp going to Hamburg. So, presidential decree on the 28th of June 1932, new airmail routes to the West Indies and South America opened up. So they surcharged 6,000 stamps with the new values so that they were able to use these new air routes. So as you can see, the FAM5 route again expanding, the 6 expanding. They give us new routes into the West Indies and South America. So the first local surcharge was done was the 30 centavo on 50 centavo stamps, and 6,000 these made. You can see there's a double imprint, one inverted, so 2 sheets of those were done. Here's a double imprint with none of them inverted, so another two sheets were done. And this is showing the 30 centavo, the new rate to Jamaica. So then there was a need for the 35-cent rate for the Guadeloupe and the Windward Islands. So there was 5,300 overprinted, 35 centavos in red. There's 300 known of the double imprints. Unfortunately, I don't have a usage to show, and the only 35 centavo that I have on 50 is one that was used in a Zeppelin cover to Germany via Rio de Janeiro. Then we needed the 40-cent surcharge for British Guiana, Honduras, French Guiana, and Peru. So again, 6,000 were overprinted. 200 were known as doubles, to one sheet of known of triples. So first one, second one, and then another one over the top of the second one. Also, there was inverted surcharges, and there's 3 sheets of a double with an inverted. One of the things we notice in a sheet that there's a missing part of E in position 82, and this becomes common in all the overprints, even though the value changes. So the typeset would indicate they use the same typeset and just change the value for each of these overprints. So this is showing the new 40-cent surcharge incorrectly used to Paris, but then there wasn't sufficient stamps to use the correct one for the correct destination. Also, this is an Ernest Hammer first day cover, and he was a well-known dealer in Nicaraguan stamps. Then we needed the 55-cent surcharge on one Cordobla. There were 6,000 of these overprinted. As you can see down the bottom right-hand corner, the missing E in position 82 as well. Again, double overprints existed, inverted overprints existed, and double with one overprint. So starts to become suspicious about how these double overprints are produced. So this is actually shown a double overprint being sent to London. It is a Hammer cover, and there's a good chance that I would say Hammer was involved in these double overprints, as he seemed to have bought the sheets every time they were available. However, this is the only recorded cover that he actually sent to London. So to promote Airmail, the Nicaraguan government decided to have an international Airmail week between 11th and 17th of September. And so therefore they overprinted in 3 lines 1,000 stamps. The first 600 were bought up by dealers and the rest by locals for sending out mail. And here's one again, a Hammer cover going to the US. So 12th of October 1932, Nicaragua started their internal airmail service. So they flew between Managua, Octal, Esteli, Matagalpa, and Jinataga. So 2,000 of these stamps were produced. At 8 cents, still remember the surface rate was 2 cents. It's still an expensive issue. So a couple of errors on these. There's 20 sheets known with the 1232 error instead of the 1932. There's a sheet of the double surcharges, and there was in one position they replaced the U. They got it upside down and used an N. So there's 20 of those available. And this is showing a first day of issue, first flight cover, Managua to Matagalpa. And another one to Jinataga. So on the 28th of October 1933, typically Nicaragua were a very poor country. They needed more airmail stamps, but due to lack of funds, they couldn't afford to get a new series made. So they asked American Banknote Company, could you please reuse the old dies, change the colours, and surcharge them the new surcharges and give us 50,000 of each value. So these were known as the Airmail Provisionals of 1932. So as you can see, 50 centavo now in orange and blue, and one Cordobla in yellow and green, along with the overprints. And because these are specimens, these overprints were done by American Banknote, and therefore no errors exist in these stamps. And this is showing the 35 centavo rate to Guatemala. On the 13th of March 1934, a new rate of 10 centavos per 14 gram for all the Central American countries, so adjacent and Central American countries. So 50,000 were overprinted in red with 3 lines on a 20 centavo stamp. Numerous genuine errors do exist in this line. So you can see the 20 centavo stamps with 3 lines, Service Central America, and that was 10. There is a double overprint, one with black, one is red. Only one sheet was known, and one sheet of black only was printed. So this is showing the double surcharge, inverted surcharges, and double inverted surcharges. So this is showing the new Central American rate of 10 centavo to Costa Rica, and also to Honduras. So proving again that this was the new rate to the Central Americas, and again to Costa Rica. So on the 15th of July 1935, 60,000 were overprinted 10 centavos on the 25 centavo stamp. So this became a very popular rate, and they needed more. And of course, they were likely overprinted, and there's numerous errors. And I think I have one of each of them up in my collection. So this is now showing the 10 centavo on the 25 centavo stamp, and this is going to Honduras. And another one, and this is with the inverted, heading off to Costa Rica. So 16th of November 1935, thieves broke into the post office and stole between 30,000 and 80,000 Cordoblas worth of Monotombo stamps, which means the few that were remaining, they decided to revalidate them, so anyone trying to use the stolen stamps would be arrested. So all remaining stamps were revalidated with a single line blocked out Rossello 1935 in blue. And as you can see, the numbers that were left were quite minimal, 10,000, 3,000, and even 500. So the thieves got around with a lot. Also, of the new provisionals surcharge, they were also revalidated. So unless they were on your letters, they couldn't be posted. So here's showing the use of the revalidated 15 centavo going off to the US, and the 20 centavo heading off to Germany. Of course, the Central American stamps needed to be revalidated as well. and there was 20,000 of these overprinted with the same blue Rosello 1935 mark. And it's showing, because of the shortage of stamps, these 2 10 centavos made up the 20 centavos to go to Germany. Oh, sorry, to Austria. On the 10th of February 36, more stamps were ordered and revalidated so that they wouldn't be confused with the stolen stamps. These ones were revalidated again with Rosello 1935, but with done in red to distinguish between the blue, and so they knew that these were the new stamps. Again, showing both the 15 and 20 going to Colombia with the Rosello revalidation on it. Typically, we needed the additional values. They were ordered and also overprinted Rosello 1935. And also the Central American 25 centavo with 10 centavo overprint. These were also revalidated. This one is showing an error that we have here in centavos in the actual print. So it was an R instead of an A. And this one was revalidated several times. This is an unofficial production. We don't see any of these in commercial usage. So we're not too sure on the status of this overprint. So 2nd of July 36, reissued another 20,000. This time they've been revalidated with what we call red type 2. As you can see, it's a lot clearer, showing Rosello 1935, and the frame is a lot clearer. And this was the new lot. So the new type 2 going to London. So 1st of January 1937, finally, with some extra money, they produced a new set of stamps with the values 15, 20, 25, 50, and 1 Cordova in different colours, which would distinguish from the stolen ones, so no more revalidation needed to be done. In February, this is the first lot of Momotombo officials, so they just use an overprint in the centre of the stamp to mark these as officials. So these were the new officials. And in the middle of 1937, they introduced a new Airmail series, and that was the end of the Momotombo. A few still get used later on usage, but pretty much that's the story of the sad Momotombo stamp. A beautifully produced stamp, but with a sort of history of earthquakes and thefts, changing in surcharges, etc. I find it an intriguing area to study, and still more research needs to be done on that. So thank you very much for allowing me to present this to you.
Thank you, Glenn. Questions, comments for Glenn? Glenn, while we wait, I have one. You mentioned the 40 centavos charged to Guyana and Peru, but on the same slide you mentioned to Honduras. Was there a penalty going from across the border just from Nicaragua to Honduras at that time, or what was a rate change later on? Because
I think for that at that time it didn't just fly backwards; it ended up having to fly because PAA flew around in a circle, basically. So it would have gone back up to Miami and back down to Honduras. So,
I see. Okay, so it was because of the direction that the charge was so high. Okay.
Yeah. And please understand the people that determined the rate for PAA airmail stamps was Pan American Airlines. So they were full control. They wanted every dollar. They wanted a stamp that was uniquely for them, so they knew exactly how much money to send to them. And you got to remember, Nicaragua was was desperate to pay the bills because they had no funds at all around that time.
Yeah, they need to get anything they could. And actually, thanks for that explanation. That's the reason why maybe Mauricio likes to fly in a way that has to make a full circle around and miss those things. So that's great. Any question or comments?
I had the same questions. Excellent presentation, Glenn. Why the rate were not by region? Honduras, Guyana, and Peru. 40 cents, 40 cents rates.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, the adjacent countries always got the cheaper rate, but that's because it was shipped or trucked. But, you know, when Airmail came, we just had to follow the path, and whatever PAA wanted is what we end up paying. But luckily, as the volumes increased, the rate did go down, because for a poor Nicaraguan, to write a letter to the US would cost 3 centavos normally. And then to add 25 centavos, that's a huge cost, you know, just for the pleasure of getting airmail. And it's not airmail, you'll get it the next day. It still has to be on forwarded from the port to wherever. And a lot of those first day covers, the receiving stamps are 5-6 days later. So it may not have got there any quicker.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mauricio.
Thank you, Glenn, for the presentation. Very, very interesting. I have a question regarding those test covers that you show us in the beginning of your presentation, the one sent to Guatemala.
Yeah.
By any chance, have you seen anyone sent to Honduras?
Yes, I think I've got a Honduras one, because I've got about 20 test covers. So as they were going, but they don't all have Momotombo stamps on. A lot of them have got, and but yes, I think I've got one to Honduras as well, because I think my feeling is he sent 5 to 10 to every city to guarantee one of them got back to him, because, you know, the idea was they were meant to go. On the more recent ones, I mean, after the first few, he put his name in the top left-hand corner of those covers, and he was the postmaster. So as the flights were increasing, he was monitoring it all, and that's why there was no surface mail on, because it was just to fly there and then come back. There was no need to send it, and because he was using official stamps, he often didn't need to use the correct rate, which is quite interesting. And one of the other interesting things I found with Nicaraguan mail in general, because of that 1 cent tax, the president said, look, I'm going to use half the money on that 1 cent tax to rebuild the cathedral, and the other half to go into the postal workers, like a superannuation, you know, pension fund. And so the first stamp the post office would put on would be that 1 cent tax, because half of that was going to them. And sometimes you see a mail with postage dues with only the 1 cent tax on there, because they knew that was for them. However, because it was President Zelaya, he screwed them and he spent the money on himself. So anyway, that's another story.
It was his own fun.
Yeah. The other thing is a comment. It's interesting to see that date, December 15, 1929, where they began to start one of those international airmail routes, because that's also the same day that, although Honduras already had the contract with Pan American, on that same day, we started the service from San Lorenzo, the southern part of Honduras, to link Nicaragua and El Salvador. When the link was made in San Lorenzo between FAM 5 and FAM 8. Which San Lorenzo was a mess for that. It was a very small office, and that's why they didn't did the job right. But it was also on that same day, December 15, when the service began in Honduras, also from San Lorenzo, going to Nicaragua and to El Salvador on the other way. As for the 40 cent rate that you mentioned, have you seen any covers with those 40 cents to Honduras? I only ask this because knowing the timetables of Pan American, which I do have in my computer somewhere, the service northbound in their case to Miami was almost daily.
Yeah.
With that being the next stop, or San Lorenzo, or Tela in Honduras. So it makes not much sense trying to go the other way around if you have almost daily flights northbound. So my question is, those 40 cents would be interesting to see a cover with those 40 cents to see the date of arrival.
Yeah.
Because it's weird. 40 cents for a
that
neighbor
40-cent rate, you hardly see a cover on it. I can't. I don't have one myself. So that's sometimes the problem is the rate exists, but the covers don't. And you think, what did they not use the service? Did no one in Nicaragua write to Honduras? I don't believe so. I think there was business trading relationships between each of the Central American countries. But of course, it might have been just as easy to put it on a truck or put it out of Port Corinto and get it straight up to there. So there's probably a reason why.
Although, to be honest, mail from my country, from Honduras to Nicaragua, from that period is also very rare for some reason. And let me just show you this cover. Remind me one that you just showed a few moments ago with the Servicio Centroamericano Vale 10 centavos.
Yep.
The one that you have, very interesting, to the German ambassador. I believe that was a registered cover. This is a regular airmail, but interesting to see a lot of those covers have the same blue typewriter. So
if you see Raphael, he is the same guy. So he's the actual postmaster there that sent all those proving covers. He did every single one. And that's his typewriter for sure.
Very interesting. So thanks. Thank you very much.
I should do a list of all the proving covers out of Nicaragua, and just to see which ones that he actually were tested and which ones he didn't.
Because let me show you this one. It's not of the Momotombo issue, but it was like it went with the other one that I just shown a few seconds ago. Let me share this one. And as you mentioned with Nicaragua, sometimes the rates is a little bit complicated to figure it out. Especially, let me show you this one. So far, I have not been able to identify which rate is this, because un Córdoba, that was a lot of money.
No, because they're official stamps, the rate doesn't have to make sense.
It doesn't have to make sense.
I mean, they tried to make sense, but they're accepted anyway. So you've got, like a registered cover. It's got 4 grams, so there's nothing in it. It's just the weight of the envelope. So he's got 50, 70, 95 plus 1. So all he's done is, for this person, is put one of each of the official stamps on there. So the rate does not add up.
It does not add up,
And it didn't have to. That's the point, because it was just flying there, and it was official business.
Interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Alfonso.
Thank you, Glenn, for the conversation. I have one question about the 1931 earthquake. You said the building was destroyed and a lot of stamps was destroyed in the building. The first question is, the stamp was destroyed or someone stole the stamps? And the second one is, any inventory available of all the stamps destroyed?
No, I mean, you can imagine a building just collapsing with an earthquake. So even if the stamps were recovered, they weren't usable. So, and what they had to do is to go to all the post office surrounding and ask them to send back their stamps so they could then overprint them and reuse them. So that was particularly all destroyed. the Great Theft was another time, and yeah, pretty much the whole inventory was stolen. As you can see with the overprints and revalidation, there was very few of them. So there was no way they could allow 80,000 Cadoblas to be used by various people and not paying for them. They just couldn't afford that at all. So who stole them?
Nobody knows.
I don't know. But there is another theft of printing plates and stuff that a couple of dealers got caught. So Nicaragua started producing their own local stamps. They stole these plates and started reprinting them and putting them on the philatelic market. And I've got articles in the 30s about these dealers, and there's really good, you know, soldiers with machine guns and everything, and a pallet load of plates and stamps that they'd done. So there's a lot of things happen in the history of Nicaragua, and it was just a funny place to be in the 30s, that's for sure.
And some values of the supposed stamps destroy increase the value?
How can you tell if it was one that was destroyed or not? You know, I haven't seen any. No one's written an article on it. We just wrote them off and moved forward. But you got to remember, they had an earthquake 10 years before that destroyed the cathedral. So the Nicaragua is not uncommon to earthquakes that destroy buildings that aren't built to a good, strong code.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Glenn.
No problem.
They've been shaking.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Any other question, comment for Glenn?
Just to remind me, Glenn, when was that 40-cent fair? What year was it?
I think off the top of my head, that's 1933, 34. That's when those
Oh, yes.
So in the beginning, they just had one value for everything, but as the routes changed and the mail, you know, they started dropping all the rates and increasing the rates, as you noticed. And as they progressed further down South America, then, you know, we had greater rates as well.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty much covering just the topic of the Momotombo because I really love that stamp. It's a well engraved stamp by American Banknote Company. So.
Oh yeah, and the details are very fine. You can really tell, especially in
the you can really rub your finger over the stamp and feel the engraving. That's for sure. Yeah,
they spend some money on that printing. So I don't see any other hands raised. So Glenn, thank you. We appreciate your presentation very much.
Thank you very much. Look, I'm always pleased to talk with you guys. I'm sorry it's in English. But yeah, even with pictures, I think you get a drift of what I'm trying to show. And if you want me to do something else, just let me know, and I'll put my hand up for another talk as well. So,
what about in Spanish next?
Thank you.
Oh, it's Spanish. I have to try. It could be a very long presentation.
Maybe start with one slide.
Yeah, one slide.
Glenn, don't worry, your pronunciation is very good. Momotombo.
Momotombo. Oh, good.
Momotombo.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm gonna say the